am back again. My voice is a little bit congested, but I'm still here because I'm committed to you. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about why you are insecure and how you're going to triumph over it. And I'm specifically going to use my experience, my life experience, to be talking about this. The TLDR, if you just need to know now, is that you're bored. You are very bored. And I was once very bored, which is actually where we will be beginning my story today. Thank you. So when I was in high school, I was homeschooled. Now, I had attended in-person school up until my freshman year of high school. There was never any thought in my family that I was going to be homeschooled. My sister was not homeschooled. My parents had a little bit of a big apprehensiveness. They're very apprehensive about homeschooling me. They had, concerns about, socializing and the quality of the education, et cetera, et cetera. Both of my parents are educators, so they were very invested, of course, in me having a good education. And I did have a very good education up until my freshman year of high school. I suffered from an ED starting in the end of middle school, and then it reached the worst my freshman year of high school. And I ended up attending, I think, only about like a trimester and a half of my in-person high school before my ED got very bad, and I was taken to treatment. I went to treatment, and then I came out, and then I was on home hospital for essentially the rest of my freshman year. But I had developed at that time such intense social anxiety around being at my high school, being around my peers, that I begged my parents to make me homeschooled, and I was homeschooled, and then I was homeschooled for the rest of high school. Now, because this is sort of like an impromptu decision on behalf of my family, we didn't really like prepare very well for like me being homeschooled, and I think I ended up having a bit of a peculiar, I guess, homeschooling experience because of that. Also, like I said, I had horrible social anxiety, and this was also during COVID times. So trying to socialize in general was already going to be like incredibly complicated. On top of that, being homeschooled in an impromptu way obviously was not supporting my experience. So my routine on an average homeschool day for me in high school was I would wake up at like 8 a.m. I've always been an early riser. I'd wake up even though like I didn't have to. I would have all of my schoolwork done for the day by maybe a solid 10 a.m., maybe 10:30, right? I was done with my schoolwork, and then I would go on a walk in my neighborhood. It was always really hot, but I would go on a walk, and I would be there only with like old people and stay-at-home moms, because we were the only ones, and me, who was homeschooled, that had, an 11 a.m. on a Wednesday available, right? That we weren't hung up at work or school or anything, right? So I'd go on a walk in this neighborhood, just walking for laps and laps and laps and laps. And then eventually, I'd come home, and then I would spend the rest of the day on my phone. 8 hours, I don't even know how long, forever. I was chronically, criminally addicted to my phone, because what else was there to do? During this period, I remember I'd go on these walks and I'd be talking to myself, right? I looked crazy, but I'd be talking to myself, and I kept thinking about this sort of high school experience that I wasn't having. I thought, the first day of freshman year, I wrote a letter to God. I wrote a letter to God, and I said, I want to have my teenage dream, right? I grew up on Visco. If you're a Visco girl, you know what I'm talking about. Tap in, okay? I was on Visco. I was on, of course, Instagram and Pinterest, and I was like, I want to have my teenage dream. I wanted to, have a bunch of friends, and we're gonna go to In-N-Out, we're gonna go to the beach, we're gonna go to bonfires, we're gonna have like a good time. I'm gonna be gorgeous, beautiful boots mama, and I'm gonna have so many lovers and friends, and like, so I was gonna, gonna have an amazing time. And in my head, I was gonna have like 2 people that were in love with me, and I was gonna be like torn in between who I was gonna go with. But I had this like dream, right, of like this was gonna be my high school experience, high school movies, whatever, that I grew up on. And here I was, homeschooled, going on walks with the elderly, right? This was not the life I wanted to live. I was so upset with myself. And I kept thinking that my ED failed. That was the problem. That when I was obsessed with losing weight, it was all in the pursuit of, I'm gonna make myself more attractive, I'm gonna make myself more desirable, and then once I'm just so irresistible, then all of these things that I want in life are gonna come to me. I'm gonna get the relationship that I want, I'm gonna get the friendships that I want, I'm gonna get the career opportunities that I want. I dreamt of being an actress. I only wanted to be an actress. That was like my dream life. So I was like, I'm gonna become, this world famous actress and blah, blah, blah. Like, that was like my thought. And so I was so fixated on becoming beautiful, and that's all I cared about for pretty much all of high school. And I would, I was always watching the little Chloe Ting workouts. I was watching the little model what I eat in a days. I was, going on my little walks, doing whatever I had to do, working out, dieting, to get myself to that beauty ideal. And that was all of high school. Flash forward, my 18th birthday, I go on another walk in my neighborhood, and I, had this memory where I was like, my whole life since I was a little girl, I told myself that my only goal in life, the only thing I wanted to become was a professional writer. I wanted to be a published author, and I just wanted that to be my day job. I wanted that to be my career, whatever. That was like my dream. And I realized I am now grown up. So I told myself when I grow up, this is what I'm gonna do. And I'm like, I'm 18, I'm an adult, this is what I gotta do now. And I committed myself to writing. I committed myself to my creative process, and I committed myself to actualizing this goal that I'd had my entire life. I ended up applying to participate in a screenwriting mentorship that was held the following summer in the south of France. It ended up being such a beautiful experience. But I applied for that, and then I got in, so I spent a year writing my script, working on my script. After that, I came back, I started writing on Substack, and I started making TikToks, and that has been my project, I guess, for the last like 2 years. And I guess this year kind of officially became my job, and it became how I was making money. Last summer I got to speak at World Without Exploitation's Youth Summit in DC, and got to go over there and be like a keynote speaker, and to talk about, you know, objectification, exploitation. Really interesting experience to get to do like really meaningful work. And basically for the last 2 years, I invested in my dreams, and I became very busy focusing on actualizing my goals. Now earlier, back when I was, you know, when I was 18, I was like first starting to get into, I was really learning a lot about feminism, and I was starting to really start taking my writing goals seriously. I had this moment where I was journaling, and I asked myself to list everything that I wanted to accomplish in my life. And I wanted to become a professional writer. I wanted to become financially independent. I wanted to like attend a good university. I'm trying to remember everything I had. Fall in love. I wanted to have make good friends. And I really asked myself, I took every single one of these goals individually. I took them all to court, and I asked, do you need beauty, attractiveness in order for this goal to be actualized? And almost like had these goals defend to me why they were why beauty was integral to these things being actualized, why I needed to be skinny with long hair and gorgeous skin and all of these things in order to fall in love, in order to make friends, in order to make money, in order to become a writer. I asked myself, explain to me why all of these things are that important to you having that end goal, to these things being actualized, right? That was a question. And I came out the other end empty-handed, babe. I could not justify why my, you know, dream school acceptance was gonna be predicated on me being 120 pounds. I could not find the answer to that question. And so I had to realize that I was putting all of my eggs in this basket of beauty. I was so invested in becoming beautiful, feeling like something was gonna be on the other end for it, on the end for me. And I could not justify that. I could not like reasonably explain like the logic of that thought process. And that in a lot of ways became the permission slip, the moment where I was able to allow myself to fully go into this process of becoming ugly, which is something I've talked about before. I ended up gaining, I don't know, because I kind of stopped weighing myself around my freshman year of high school once I was going through treatment, but maybe like 50 to 70 pounds, and shaved my head at the end of 2023. I started only wearing athleisure, partially because I sized out of my closet, and then I also went on a no-buy, so I stopped buying clothes for, oh my god, was that a year? About a year I stopped buying clothes. Maybe to save money, but then also partially was because, you know, I was like, I don't want to care so much about how pretty I am. And I was happy. I was really happy when I fully allowed myself to become as ugly as humanly possible. And I went into this very intentional becoming ugly phase. I wrote an essay on Substack about it, being ugly will set you free, where I explained more of this concept. I talked about this ad nauseum because this was such a life-changing point for me to allow myself to become ugly. And the reason why this worked was because I invested in myself in these things that were more fulfilling. All I ever wanted was to be a writer. I started writing. I started pursuing these creative goals. I was getting my associate's degree. I was finishing up my degree so that I could transfer to university, and which is now actually what I'm doing next month. You guys can let me know if you guys want any like move-in videos, whatever. But that's what I had to do. Right? I had to fill my mind. Your mind has to be filled with something. It has to be filled with something. I filled my mind with these actual ambitions that I had, with the actual things that were fulfilling for me. It's like the difference between chewing gum, right, to get full off of gum, versus getting full off of a hearty meal with a potato, a complex carb, protein. I'm a vegetarian, so I'm not thinking about like steak. Some beans. Some tofu, some broccoli, steamed, charred, however you like it. It's the difference between having a hearty meal like that and try to get full off of gum. For when I was so interested in becoming small, I was giving myself something, you know, no pun intended here, this is an ironic metaphor, but I was trying to get full off of this thing that was never gonna be satisfying. It was never gonna be satiating. Why? Because I, you know, whatever, assigned all of my goals and ambitions to like becoming pretty. But then when I started to fulfill myself with things that were actually hearty and fulfilling and wholesome for me, then I did not have the mental real estate to think so hard about becoming attractive. I did not have the time or the energy because I was birthing something, I was creating something, I was filling myself with something that was more fulfilling, something that was genuinely satisfying me. There literally just was not time, right? When I was in high school And I had all the time in the day to sit around and think about how attractive I am, how big my body is, what I need to do about my hair, what I need to do about my skin, what I this, and that, and the third. When all I had was time in order to do that, then that's what I did. That became my project and my source of fulfillment. And because I didn't have time or energy to do anything else. Boredom was my op. She was public enemy number one, right? I was able to become ugly. I was able to not care about my attractiveness anymore because I was filling my time with other things. Of course, when I didn't have that, that's when when my time was not filled, that's when it was very easy for me to become obsessed with beauty. The reason why, this is my conviction, the reason why I think a lot of us might feel okay, I'll give my stance. I think the reason why a lot of us feel insecure, obsessed with relationships, obsessed with getting picked romantically, is because we're bored. I think we need to fill our time. I'm not saying that I haven't seen or met, successful, busy women who are not also insecure, but it's harder. It's harder. You're putting obstacles in your way. When you make yourself busy, you're putting obstacles in the way of you becoming body obsessed. So I think that it's a really valuable place for us to be putting our time and energy. And I think this whole thing of keeping women bored, keeping women unoccupied, is very intentional, telling us that the only thing we should be aspiring towards is becoming more attractive. And then, historically, right, preventing women from getting an education, preventing women from working, assuming, women, you feeble little girl brains, you won't be able to do physics and geometry and astrophysics, another type of physics. You won't be able to become mathematicians. You won't be able to be political leaders. You're not going to be able to do these things that are mentally rigorous. A part of that is that if you did, you wouldn't have time to care so much about toiling your body away into perfection, with thinking that that's where your value comes from, with thinking that your value comes from getting picked romantically with some random dude thinking that you're attractive. You're not going to have the time to do that if you're pursuing these academic goals, these professional goals, whatever it is. There's an understanding, a calculation that you will not have the time. Which is partially then why we were prevented from being able to work and being able to get educational attainments, from being able to even just the assumption that we wouldn't want to do things that are mentally rigorous. Actually, I'm transferring to, like I said, to a university. I'm going to start at UCLA in September. And if you're watching this, hit me up. I have no friends in LA. I want friends in Los Angeles. So let me know if you would like to engage in friendship. But beside the point, I've been wanting to get a minor, and I think I'm an English major, so I think about getting my minor in creative writing. But I also think that it'd be really interesting if I got a minor in something really hard, just for the sake of doing it, right? For the sake of filling your mind, for the sake of keeping yourself occupied. And it's not about mindlessly toiling away for no reason, but in understanding that when you apply your mind and you force yourself to succeed, remember, we are living in the era of I'm just a girl. We're living in the era of girl math. We're living in an era where these blatantly sexist ideas that women don't have brains that can commit themselves to complicated work is being something that is being contorted and presented to a younger generation to get us to adopt it, right? Because if you just said straight up women are dumb, then a lot of us who grew up online seeing feminist content are going to be like, get this sexist off my timeline, right? But we're not going to see it. We're not going to think that when we see I'm just a girl, when we see girl math, when we see girl dinner. So many of us are being hoodwinked into believing that because we're girls, because we're women, that we're stupid, that we're dumb, that we can't commit ourselves to complicated work. There's so much value in us allowing our beautiful girl brains to be burdened by difficult work, right? I will always finger clap, full clap for a STEM major girl, for a girl who is applying herself, for allowing herself to do something very difficult, very strenuous, very taxing, very time consuming. Because not only are you proving that women are intelligent, that we have things to contribute to these areas of the world, right? That we do have these brains that have a lot to offer. Not only are you disproving that, but you're filling your time with something that is ultimately so much more fulfilling then getting skinny, then getting picked, these, whatever little, workout regime and getting healthy, whatever lifestyle change you want to make for yourself and falling in love. I'm not saying these things are inherently awful and bad and we need to boycott them, whatever. But thinking that that's where your value is going to come from and that's where you need to commit all your time, babe, we have been bamboozled. Bamboozled. And I don't want to have that anymore. So that's your help. You need to stop being bored. I think that's it. Bye, guys.